I've been in a few discussions lately about portraits and how they fit into the realm of paintings, and when does a portrait become something that is saleable to someone else rather than just a picture of your own dog? And how do you move from commissions into paintings that you could sell through galleries, things like that? So here is an example of what I mean by a portrait. This is clearly just a picture of my dog, and whether someone else is going to buy that painting and hang it on the wall is quite questionable. But what is it that you can do to a painting to make it more of a painting and less of a specific portrait? So a few of the things you can do are you can include more of the animal. In this case, I've added the paws. There's also interest in the reflection of the hardwood floor. We've got the rug underneath the dog. Just a few other things that add to the interest in the painting. The dog has an expression. There's a lot of interest in the eyes of the dog. It's clearly looking at something quite intently. There's the little fish toy that adds a little bit extra, and all those things add up to just a little bit of a story behind the painting that might have somebody a little more interested in purchasing it than they would if it was just the dog's head. And another thing you can do is add more of a background, and perhaps even make the animal not looking directly at you. An animal that's sleeping can sometimes be a little bit more interesting. In this case, it's again another one of my dogs, but it's a painting that I did as a print, and it sold quite well in print, so obviously has more appeal than just a portrait of an animal. And this next painting is again my dog, the first dog that I showed you. And this painting I actually sold through a gallery. It is again a dog sleeping, so not looking right at you. And we've all seen dogs in this kind of a position, and there's a certain appeal to something that dogs do on a regular basis. Another thing you can do is to make a painting much more about the way the paint is used than about the subject itself. So this is again a little puppy, but it's all about how the painting is done really loosely, and that could be done to any subject, so it doesn't really focus on what the subject matter is, albeit there's a certain appeal to little puppies. To me, the interesting thing about this painting when I sold it was that the lady said to me that she had never had a golden retriever, but she'd had an old dog, and that was why the painting had appealed to her. So there are things that you can do to touch someone's heart by choosing the position of the animal or the way it looks in the painting that may make it more appealing than just an animal staring out into space. Another thing you can use is different lighting effects. The reference photo for this painting was actually taken on a sunny afternoon, so I obviously changed a lot of the look of the lighting in the painting, and I think that was a big part of the appeal when my customer bought this painting. And she told me when she bought it that she'd been looking for the perfect painting for her fireplace for 5 years, and this was it. So what was the appeal? I mean, there's a story behind the horse because he happens to be a famous horse. That's Ali Deed, who won the Queen's Plate here in Canada and finished second in the Preakness 25 years ago. So she enjoyed hearing the story behind the painting, but the painting itself appealed to her first before she heard the story. This next painting sold, I believe, because of the detail in it. That was something that really appealed to this particular customer. So how a painting is done, the style it's done in, might be part of it. Another thing you can do is you can include more animals. In this case, I've got 5 horses in this painting, and it adds a little bit more to the storyline of the painting because there are more animals in it, even though each one is basically a portrait. This draft horse painting is all about the harness, and that is the appeal of the painting compared to if it was just a horse's head. So sometimes things like the tack that you include on a painting can turn it into a little bit more than just a standard portrait. Now this one is just a portrait. That's all it is a portrait of a little animal, but it's sold because of the title. So this one was called Blondes Have More Fun, and the buyer bought it for his wife, who was blonde. Now, when it comes to portraits of people, obviously portraits of people do sell because there are some very famous ones like Mona Lisa, but there is usually something more about it that makes it appealing. It can be the brushwork, it can be the expression. This one is a little boy, obviously. Is it ever going to sell to anybody except the person who knows him? Perhaps not. Something more like this, where it's interaction between a mother and child, that might have a little bit more of a mass appeal. So in many ways, if you can add a little bit of a story to a painting as to what is going on, in this case, the little girl is leaning on her mother's legs, and that adds a bit to the appeal of the painting. Or you can also include more than one figure and other things that add interest, like the chair here with all the light reflections. There's two little animals. There's obviously something going on. So there's lots of things you can do while still painting portraits of people and or animals, and create something that is saleable through a gallery or through your shows.